Hello there, YouTube. Forgot that today we're doing lower thirds. That's that little thing you see that you saw on the screen before this. Actually, you saw a bunch of them. I made a whole bunch for Reddit in the Let's Play subreddit. You just fly that out at the beginning, and people are like, "Oh, hey, I know that." And then you can make a call to action and have them subscribe or something like that. That's what we're gonna learn today. So let's go ahead and jump on in. Okay, guys. So we are in After Effects now. You should be at a blank project. If you're not, go ahead and click New Project, get to a blank project. We're going to be making a Facebook follow me flyout lower thirds for this example. So you're going to need a Facebook icon. Make sure it's a PNG. I have a whole folder full of icons. I'm going to be using this one right here. PNG is a transparent background so that it doesn't interfere with the other things that we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and drag this to the project. It's going to take a second. It's going to load in. There it is. Okay, so now we want a new composition. A composition is just going to be what we're drawing on. It's going to be like our paper. Let's come up here to composition. Click new composition. Height and width, set those to about 800. That's just the size of our paper. And then set the duration to 15 seconds. Should be like 30 seconds by default. Go ahead and set that to 15 seconds. I don't think any of these are going to be longer than 15 seconds. I've never seen one. Background color is black. Should be black by default. Go ahead and click OK once you have all these set. So now you're at this black screen here. And the first thing we want to do is just draw a shape. So come up here to this rectangle tool. If it's not a rectangle, click and hold. And then select rectangle. And we want to draw like a blue Facebook color rectangle. And so we need a fill. So if it has a slash, that means there's not a fill. Click on the fill word. And second to the left, press OK. We don't want a stroke or a border or an outline, which is what a stroke is. So click on the word stroke, make sure the slash is on, press OK. And now if we just begin drawing on this black space, we'll draw a blue box rectangle. So how do we animate this? Well, you come over here to the right, effects and presets, and type in linear wipe. That does what it sounds like it's going to do, and it wipes things in a line. So click on this, drag it down to your layer. Don't drag it onto this, drag it onto your layer. If you drag it onto the shape, it won't pop up over here, and you won't be able to see your options for your effects. Make sure you drag it on to the layer. You'll notice that it's disappeared, but it's not actually disappeared. If you move the time indicator forward, you can see that it fills up like a loading bar, which is what a linear wipe does. So you can do this forward, or you can reverse. If you expand effects, you'll see linear wipe, expand linear wipe, and you can reverse this to be 0 and instead go to 100. And now it like depletes itself like a battery instead of a loading bar. But we want it to be the other way around, how it was. So let's come back to that keyframe, and then if you hold shift, it'll like snap to it. And let's change it to 0 so it's filled up. That was pretty simple for that. Now we want like an outline or the stroke that we were talking about before. Let's come back up here to our rectangle tool. Make sure you click off this layer first, or you're going to edit this layer. So we don't want it to be highlighted, click off. Then come up here to your rectangle tool, click on the rectangle tool again. We don't want to fill, we just want a border. Click on the fill word, click none, we don't want that. And then click on the word stroke, we do want it. Click that, okay. Let's change our color, we want it to be white, so click and then change it to white if it's not. This is the thickness of the border, 11 pixels should be okay. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna draw, starting from this corner here, around that. So how do we animate this border? Like what do you do for that? So there's this thing in this program called trim paths. We're on shape layer 2 right now, which is this border. There's this thing called trim paths. It will draw any shape that you have done in a line. So if you draw a line from left to right, it will animate from left to right. So to get it, you have to click this add button here and then come down, trim paths. And you'll get this little thing, expand that out. And then if you move end to 0, it's going to be at 100% always. You can see that the line just starts to decrease. Okay, so now by default, it's all set to 0. If these are blue, then something is checked, and that's not what we want. Make sure they're unchecked, 0, and then we're going to come back to the beginning, and then we're going to click Start. We want to start at the beginning, and then we want to go forward, maybe to where the box is filled up, like right here, and then move it up to 100%. And so what it will do is it will draw it from 0 to 100%, just like that. So now we have this cool loading bar. So now what we want to do is get that, we want that picture that we had. So come over here to your project in the upper left and then drag the picture that you have onto here. We want it to be above the layers, so make sure it's the top one. And then move it over here to the left. That seems like a good spot. It's a little bit big. I'm gonna minimize it a little bit. Hold shift or the aspect ratio gets weird. I'm gonna minimize it, and that seems about good. And then click off. Make sure you minimize these to keep it organized. Okay, so we want to add a little depth to this Facebook picture. So come over here and let's type drop shadow. That will give this, or whatever you put the drop shadow on, a shadow, which kind of gives it some depth, some feel. So drag it onto the layer. You'll notice that there's this little shadow that appears behind it. You can move the distance so that the shadow appears to be bigger with this option up here in the left. Let's move it to about right here, and then you can change softness, which just changes how like clear the shadow is. So a little bit blurry, but you can see that there's like space between the Facebook icon and the bar behind it. Like that. That looks pretty cool. So now we want this Facebook picture to animate in too. So that's an easy thing to do. If you just click on the layer, we already clicked on it, press S for scale. And remember, let's go to, when do we want it to animate in? We want it to be fully here, maybe like right here. And then click that scale button. It's going to set a keyframe. Then come back to the beginning. Change it to 0. It's going to be gone. 0 scale. It's disappeared. So we can see that animates in. That looks pretty cool. So let's drag these, hold shift, click. Let's drag these forward a little bit so that the Facebook icon has time to get in before it starts animating. Just like that. Now we want some text that says, follow me. So you can come up here, click off everything, come up here, click this T, and then click here, and just type what you want, follow me. Just like that. So now we want this text to be animated, and you can do that with a linear wipe, so it does the same thing as this blue bar where it like fills in from left to right. Or you can come over here to Effects and Presets, delete if there's anything in the search bar, then Animation Presets. Then go to Text, Animate In, because you're bringing it in. And we want to fly in from bottom. So drag it onto the text layer. Don't drag it onto the text, do the layer. And you'll see that disappear. It didn't actually disappear. It's still here, it's just animating in from the bottom. If you zoom out with your mouse wheel, like scroll out, you can see where it's animating from. This little box down there. That looks pretty cool. Okay, so now it says follow me, but follow who? So let's get another text layer. Let's come up here and get another text, and then let's type in my name. Let's put it like right here. So it animates in, and then the text is here. Let's pause it there. That seems like a good spot. Let's hold it for a second so you can read it. That's a good spot. And then let's have this like fly out to the bottom and have Josh Fluke fly in from the top. To do that, we're just going to click on the follow me text layer. I'm gonna press P for position. Let's go ahead and click a keyframe so we can set where it's at, and then go forward a frame or two. And then this is X and Y, so let's drag it down. You'll notice that it goes like that, but you can still see it. So we don't want to see it, so we want to change the opacity of it too while it's going out. So come back to this frame and then press T for transparency. It's called actually opacity here, but I remember it as T for transparency. And go ahead and click the stopwatch to set a keyframe, and I think we went forward like 2 frames. Yeah, that's where it was. And we wanted to change that to 0. So now we're moving it and changing the opacity, transparency of it. So now we want this Josh Fluke to move in at the same time that's moving out. So here, click on the Josh Fluke layer. We want this to be invisible though, because we don't want to see that burst. So let's set that to invisible. Press T, transparency. Make it 0, click that stopwatch. Come forward to where the other one disappears so this one can reappear. Let's move it back up to 100%, but now I have to change the position. So come back again to where it starts. You can't see it yet because it's invisible. Press P for position, X, Y. We want this to go down. Actually, we want this to stay where it's at right now, and then we want it to go down. So go forward 2 frames, and then drag it down. So now it'll look like that. If you want to add some motion blur to it, you click these 3 circles here for motion blur. Now we have an animated in lower thirds. Just like that. You can mess with these keyframes and set the timing, and then you can go back and you can reverse these keyframes. So after this plays, you could go the other way with this border and then shrink this back the other way. And then, you know, instead of scaling it in, you can scale it from 100% to 0 or whatever. I think is 72% to 0, and reverse the order, and then it goes back out just the way it came in. And you can do whatever you want with this text. You can wipe it like you do with the bar, or you can have it just fade out, or you can come up here to effects and presets and you can click animate out, and there's a whole bunch of options here for you too you can use that are pretty neat. If you need a lower thirds, this is an easy way to do it. You can mess with the settings over here when you expand these out, and you can kind of experiment with things and see what happens. But if this helps you, make sure to like this video. If you want to see more of these videos, make sure to subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll make sure to answer them if there's any. I appreciate you guys watching this, and I will see you in the next video.